Good morning. Hi, I'm Stuart Udell. I'm the CEO of K12. I appreciate everyone being here today. I see that about a third of the audience works for me, so thank you for your support as well. Let's dive forward here. I think we have a clicker that's not moving. There we go. So just as a brief overview, I think folks probably know who we are. We are an educational technology and services company. I'm going to give a very quick overview of what we do. And then what I want to talk about is a very specific initiative and opportunity that we're working on in career and technical education, very specifically. K12 is an organization that serves about 500,000 kids across our three lines of business. Firstly, in our managed public schools organization, we work with nonprofit school boards, charter school boards to run virtual schools across the nation. We run about 80 of those, serve about 100,000 students in those schools, and that's, of course, the basis upon which this organization was founded. That represents directionally about 80 to 82% of our business. We have expanded that business into the institutional world. So we take those great assets we built, our technology platforms, our courses, our courseware, our instructional management, our program management know-how, and extend that into the institutional school space through a division or a portion of our organization we call Fuel Education or Fuel Ed. Fuel Ed works with districts, about 2,000 school districts across the country, to deliver those services to about 300,000 students, and directionally represents 12 to 14% of our revenue or so. And then thirdly, we operate three private pay schools. So the first is George Washington University Online High School, which is obviously affiliated with said institution, in which we run a college prep type academy. Secondly, we run the International Academy, which serves students in the 17 states in which we do not have the ability today, because of statute, to operate virtual charter schools. And thirdly, we run a private pay institution called Keystone, which is a more flexible, self-paced curriculum that works for some kids who are looking for a slightly different program and product. Now, as I said, I want to specifically talk a little bit more about career and technical education today. This conference is about innovation. It's where we're focusing a lot of our development efforts, and we've released some new programs that I want to share with you and talk to you about. So what I want to do first is frame the opportunity in industry a little bit in career and technical education from an economic perspective, from a government perspective, from a parent and student perspective, and then we'll talk a little bit about kind of those programs and products. But suffice it to say that we know there is a big opportunity out there. The demand is there. Currently, we don't see in U.S. schools great attention being paid to career and technical education. And in fact, if you look at the national numbers, from a year-over-year basis, actually on a decade basis, we have just as few enrollments in career and tech education programs as we had a decade ago, even though the workforce needs, particularly in the middle school areas, are growing fairly substantially. So if we start at kind of the highest level and look at the employment situation a little bit and what's driving this opportunity, unemployment stands at 4.7%, and actually this data point's a couple months old. It's a couple ticks lower than that. Structurally, that's pretty low, but where the real opportunity is in underemployment, which right now is at 13.5%. Now, nationally, we've been as high as 17 or 18% in the past, and about a decade ago, we were as low as maybe 5 or 6%. But what this data point represents are opportunities for individuals who are not putting their education, their experience, and their job training to full work. So that's a kind of the large-scale opportunity against which we have developed our CTE programs. We have a widening skills gap in the United States, so that balance between folks' skills and the opportunities out there is widening to the tune of about 5 million underemployed folks right now. And it's a big issue. It's a big issue in government, certainly. Next week, I'm speaking at the Republican Governors Association Corporate Policy Summit, because this is a big issue for governors, it's a big issue for mayors, it's a big issue for legislators of all types. In fact, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation just reported that more than half of U.S. employers report struggling with talent acquisition. I know we as an organization that either directly or indirectly employs 7,000 or so folks in regions and in functional areas struggle, as I'm sure others in this room have found as well. It also becomes a productivity issue. The estimate on the lost productivity nationally due to open job positions is approximately $160 billion. Now, in terms of getting a little bit more specific about this job gap, middle skills jobs in particularly are a real problem. And that middle skills are the area above a high school diploma, but below a college degree. So that could be diplomas programs, certification programs, credential programs, some on-the-job training. And that's where this huge gap, or a large portion of the gap, comes from. Of the 55 million job openings that we expect to occur in between now and 2020, 30% will require a middle schools area workforce need. So again, higher than a high school diploma, but lower than kind of a full college degree program. The high growth industries certainly are driving a lot of this. If we look at some of where the fastest growing industry and job opportunities are, 12 of the 20 fastest growing occupations are in healthcare. We know that that's a need. Interestingly, STEM jobs drive a lot of need as well, both within healthcare and across other industries. But STEM is not only, very often when we think in schools about STEM, we think about it as higher order, something that's almost enrichment oriented in some cases. But a lot of the STEM jobs that are required in the workforce are middle skills area jobs. Now, college also, has its own issues. Well, certainly college is the right aspiration for a large majority of kids, and we should push as many kids who can benefit from it in that direction. It's often a tough trade-off. So we know that today, America's student loan debt sits at $1.3 trillion. That's composed of 44 million debt holders across the nation right now. And as we see graduations happen over the next few weeks across the United States, about 65% of kids who are walking will also walk with debt. So this number gets bigger over time and becomes a bigger issue. And in fact, student loan debt right now represents the second largest category of consumer debt in the country behind home mortgages. So we asked the question, is college right for everyone? Again, it's right for lots and lots of people. I don't know if some folks in the room may have read a book written by Bill Bennett a few years ago called Is College Worth It? And he took a very close look from a statistical standpoint. He hired some research assistants to look at the payback of college degrees for several thousand colleges across America, both 4-year degree programs and 2-year degree programs. And what he found was very interesting. One of the findings was don't go to an expensive private school that's mediocre, like bad payback on average. It doesn't mean that individual students might not have great success. He said if you go to a top-tier private institution, an Ivy League institution, or something of that caliber, the payback tends to be very good over time. But where he saw the real value was in a couple areas. And again, this was at the 10 and 20-year payback marks in terms of return on investment of all-in costs of education. He saw it at flagship state university campuses. So if you pick your state in Michigan, if you're at Michigan State, if you're at the University of Michigan, particularly its flagship campus in Ann Arbor, payback is really good. Where he also saw great payback was in 2-year degree programs and certificate programs, in STEM-related fields in general. Again, shouldn't be shocking to anybody, and it doesn't mean that you can't do great things with a liberal arts degree, of course, but on the average, in the aggregate, the payback was very strong for career-oriented fields, generally speaking. Now, within the last couple months or so, a research study came out from Edge Research that took a very close look at career and tech education, specifically parent and student attitudes towards CTE in schools. It was funded by Advanced CTE and Siemens, and I forget the exact numbers, but I think directionally they got feedback from about 1,000 parents and about 1,000 students, so it was a pretty good data set. And what they found, at least in the aggregate, and this is a parent data point, that 8 in 10 parents said that young people and those entering the workforce today are not equipped with the skills they need to succeed in the jobs that are available. So there's a frustration right now, and when parents looked at particular areas like the skilled trades, only 13% of parents felt that our school system today was doing a good job preparing students for skilled trades, for those students who wanted to go into it. And of course, it's a great way for a lot of students to make a living. On average, parents and students in this study rated their own high schools on the whole as a C in terms of their preparation of students for the workforce and careers. In addition to government, in addition to business, in addition to parent and students, celebrities are certainly involved in the conversation as well, and Mike Rowe, of course, has dedicated his career towards dirty jobs and career-oriented professions. He talks about the skills gap and the great need for students to focus on other things, including the vocational arts, or in other words, career and technical education. And Mike, of course, is very involved with Skills USA and other programs that are spending some time in this area. The National Dropout Prevention Center is something I've been personally involved with for a long time, and also has a perspective on career and technical education. I've been a board member there for 15, 16 years or so, and we have looked over a 35-year period at the 15 highly effective strategies for reducing dropout rates. And those strategies are research-based, but a lot of them have come from individual studies. So about 2 years ago, in 2015, I, along with a couple other board members, said, hey, look, we need to take a closer look at what is really working best to engage kids and keep them in school. So we did a meta-analysis of a few hundred studies that were available and looked at these 15 strategies. And the number one outcome on the list was career and technical education in terms of reducing the dropout rate, with an effect size of 0.81, which is a very significant effect size. Behind that came family engagement, which is something that we struggle with, because a family member is either engaged or not, a kid has support or doesn't. And third on the list, and also well above the bar of efficacy, was mentoring, which is something that we've been very purposeful as we've built into our career and technical programs as we've built them along. So there is some interrelatedness. Nationally, the graduation rate for CTE students is 93%. The graduation rate overall is 82%. So clearly, for students who are opting into career and technical education, it is working at the moment. And in fact, in an exit survey done, an exit survey of students, a national survey done last year, 81% of students who dropped out said that had I had a good career and technical education option, I would have stayed in the program. I'm not going to get too far into this slide, but we at K12 do a lot of work with Dr. Bill Daggett, who's an influential thought leader in the space and the creator of the rigor relevance framework. And what he basically says is this, and boiling down the slide very succinctly, knowledge is important, so you see Bloom's taxonomy on the x-axis, but so is adaptation. How do you put it to work in real-life situations and apply it to not only predictable real-world skills, but unpredictable real-world skills? So that is the extreme of what we're trying to get to. And what you want to do is move students up to the D quadrant here, which is adaptation, taking that knowledge that you learned in schools and applying it to the real world. Now, he argues that CTE works because of rigor, first of all. I remember years ago when I was with Renaissance Learning sitting in the middle of Wisconsin in the summer, we took the snowplow operator's guide for the state of Wisconsin and ran it through 2 or 3 different readability formulas. And the snowplow operator's guide in Wisconsin, like a lot of other technical guides, was written at a higher readability level than the average entry-level college textbook. So the rigor is there, because that's just what's behind these programs. The relevance is also there because kids know that they can get jobs or enhance their college applications by being part of this. Lastly, before I talk a little bit about our model, I want to talk about another survey done about what parents think about online CTE and how that might work. In this study, parents and students were more satisfied with CTE than traditional high school by a long shot. In fact, and the numbers were depressing in either case, but 55% of parents thought that their schools were doing a very good job, or they were very satisfied with their CTE programs, relative to only 27% in comprehensive high school programs. So we see, again, we see parents wanting CTE, we see students wanting CTE, and clearly the job market and government does as well. So with the last 7 or 8 or 9 minutes, I want to talk a little bit about our model and how we built our CTE program. This will be a little bit tough to see here, but in the center we have 6 career clusters, which are kind of the most in-demand clusters of jobs against which we built our program. So last fall, in fall of 2017, we rolled out programs in healthcare, in business, in manufacturing, and in information technology. And just recently, we added clustered programs in agriculture and in hospitality and tourism. Now, within those clusters, in this one of these little rings, that's very hard to see from where you are, we created 24 individual career path programs. So it's not enough to work very specifically or to study very specifically in IT, but so we've got programs in graphic design, we've got programs in Adobe, in different Adobe certifications and programming languages. Those 24 pathways, though, lead actually to 40 certifications. So all of the programs we built are certification oriented. We want kids to leave with marketable credentials that they can take to the workforce or that they can enhance a college application with and have a career pathway with. So, obviously 24 pathways leading to 40 credentials mean that we have a multiple credential opportunity in some of them. We've also built other supports in place, like partnerships with career and technical education organizations, such as Skills USA, with whom we have a partnership for, so students can be involved in competitions around various trades and CTE professions. We've got a national partnership with ACT to offer the National Career Readiness Certificate, which is a general workforce readiness certificate that can accompany a programmatic accreditation, as I talked about earlier. And we've built in other tools for career exploration, which I think is one of the outer rings, like career cruising, so students can actually explore, because not all students know exactly where they want to go with this. In terms of individual pathways within the clusters, we have, these are the 24 that you can work with. So for instance, within health science, you can work towards not only a pathway, but a certification as a pharmacy technician, as a dental assistant, as a certified nursing assistant, as a medical assistant, et cetera. And for those of you who can't see, I believe these will be posted later. We thought about how to approach CTE from an innovative perspective. So we've got virtual programs, we have blended programs, which tend to work very well. Students leave not just with a high school diploma, but with credentials, and very often with college credit. So all of our career academies, the half a dozen academies we built, along with the school districts with whom we partner, along with our comprehensive virtual schools, many of them have partnered with local community colleges, with state university systems and other proprietary schools to offer both dual and or concurrent enrollment credit. We have examples. We had a reception last night. We had a partner from Pikes Peak Virtual Academy with us who told me of a student who's a sophomore right now who already has 58 credits in Colorado systems. So those are the types of outcomes we see. We have unique partnerships, not just with Skills USA, but with trade unions who we're working with, and I'll share an example of that in a moment. We have all sorts of support around career counseling in terms of online tools, but also in terms of people who can help provide students with interview skills, resume building help, et cetera. And we've created very specific real-world partnerships in terms of internships and in terms of apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. In terms of what a sample progression might look like, if someone was interested, a student was interested in exiting with a medical assistant credential, they might take 6 or 7 electives along the way that lead to that credential, some basic foundational credentials along with medical terminology, something that associates, that is part of most of our medical programs, anatomy and physiology, culminating in 2 courses actually in medical assisting, in which we not just provide the information, but also provide test readiness and preparation programs so that students can sit for and pass that credential. I mentioned earlier we have about 6 academies that we launched last year on a virtual basis. 3 of those were brand new. 3 of those were schools, independent schools that were launched within other schools. And we're having pretty tremendous success out of the gate with them. Let me pick one here. In Wisconsin, for instance, we have a very interesting partnership between 4 institutions. K12 brings a lot of the know-how around enrollment management, instructional delivery, courseware, and a lot of the support services. We work in partnership with the McFarland Public School District, which is outside of Madison. We work in partnership with Fox Valley Technical College so that students can earn dual credit, and they are. And we work in partnership with the Operators Union, which are the folks who operate heavy equipment like bulldozers and cranes. So students around the state have an online experience, but actually have hands-on experience in partnership with the union throughout the state of Wisconsin. So that's off to a great start. In the Destination Career Academy in Colorado, we've got partnerships with 8 community colleges around the state for dual credit. Right here in Utah, we've got some great things going. We have a community college partnerships as well for credit-bearing purposes, and we actually have a 12-year-old who, let me get this data right, a 12-year-old who already has earned 21 credits. So we've taken it down to the middle school level there. The program also works well in terms of our partnerships with public school systems because of the challenges they face. So we've taken the courses we've built, the program we've built, and brought it out to public school systems and even to other private schools and charter schools who we work with. And it works well because CTE is not being funded well right now. There are challenges geographically, so you might have a great healthcare academy in a large county school district in Texas that takes an hour and a half for a bunch of kids to get to. It doesn't scale well always on a brick and mortar basis. So we offer a virtual offering in partnership with districts and then look to other organizations, whether it's unions or other internships and such, to provide some of the hands-on experience. We have a partnership in Mahoning County, Ohio, which is northern Ohio in the Youngstown, Akron corridor, whereby we've launched with an ESC there that supports 7 or 8 school districts in the area. We have launched programs in the graphic arts. We've launched a separate, in coordination with them, a separate academy, a machine academy for welders and for engineering. We've launched a STEM academy that takes world language and CTE courses and puts it together because parents and students think that's something that can be very helpful to them in the college application process and in getting a beat on their careers. Lastly, we've seen pretty good results out of the gate. The flip side, of course, of withdrawal rates are retention rates. We're doing a good job keeping students in our CTE programs on a relative basis. And while we don't yet have full aggregated data because we're in our first school year, which we're just finishing up, our academies, some of our academies are retaining kids, our standalone academies, at a pace of, say, 1,000 basis points or better. And some of our individual students, here's another interesting point. CTE programs are offered in all of our virtual schools, so students in our virtual schools that are not at career academies but are taking at least one CTE program are a couple hundred basis points right now in many of our schools more likely to retain, to stay with the program and to stay enrolled in school. So we're seeing very good outcomes right out of the gate. Getting back to survey results, 9 in 10 parents agree that CTE is an answer and want their high schools to offer comprehensive CTE programs. That is why, very specifically, we're very focused on expanding this initiative within our organization. We see demand at multiple levels, as I talked about earlier, and we're seeing very good success in the first year. And by the looks of it, we have 1 minute and 12 seconds for questions. Okay. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Have a great conference.